Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. An incredible story of survival in BC's backcountry. A hiker who went missing near Fort St. John has been found after 5 weeks in the outdoors. We'll hear more about that story. And talks to end the strike at Canada Post reach an impasse. We'll hear from the Union Gospel Mission and how this affects their holiday fundraising. And we're asking you, how has the strike affected you? Plus, we check in on Vancouver City Council's vote on reversing a ban on natural gas in new buildings. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. A hiker who went missing in northeastern British Columbia's backcountry has been found alive after surviving more than 5 weeks in a remote provincial park. This as snow fell and temperatures plunged below 20 degrees. Minus 20 degrees. Sam Benastic was reportedly found on a service road. He was so weak he was supporting himself with 2 walking sticks, and he had been using cut-up sleeping bags to wrap around his legs for warmth. CBC News confirmed Benastic had been found through family, as well as with people involved in the search. And this is in Redfern-Kiley Provincial Park, about 250 kilometers northwest of Fort St. John. His family, as well as those involved in the search, told CBC he was discovered alive but weak, and he was found walking on a road by workers dealing with well sites in the area. Now, Sam's parents never gave up on the search, and they stayed at the Buffalo Inn in Pink Mountain, BC, for more than 20 days in October to search. Mike Reed is the manager of that inn, and he grew close to the parents during that time. Here he is speaking with CBC's Sarah Penton, describing what happened when Benastic was found and a later phone call he had with Benastic's parents.
He had cut his sleeping bag and wrapped it around his legs and his feet. So he knew how to survive. It's amazing. And now he's in Fort Nelson Hospital, and the parents are on their way. They just said they grabbed the sticks from him and he almost fell to the ground. That's how weak he was. But as soon as they put him, they grabbed him, put him in the truck, gave him some food and water, and then they just called 911 and raced him to meet the ambulance. I don't know where they met the ambulance, but I'm sure halfway or wherever they met him. But yeah, he's in the hospital. You know, the guy said he's in rough shape, but man, for 50 days out in that cold, he's going to live. Well, he is living.
50 days.
Super. Yeah, 50 days is just amazing.
What do you know about what the conditions would have been like for him?
Well, I'll tell you, we had a couple of days where it was minus 35. It's been, minus 15, minus 18 up here at night. When he arrived, it was pretty nice because he had pictures of Sandra showed me some pictures of the northern stars that he took. And those nights were nice and cool, but, survival. But when they were up here, there was a few days that it was in the minus 20, 25s. Yeah, it was amazing.
So we got there, to go on a bit of a trek, sending pictures to his mom of the northern lights, like, look at how beautiful it is. And do you know, have you heard about what went wrong or what happened?
No, they don't. The last time they heard was, last time they heard of him was October 7th. And they reported him missing October 17th. Sandra said by that Friday, if we don't hear from you, we're coming out to look for you. And that's what they did.
Tell me more about what it was like. It was his dad that you talked to on the phone first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was, it's the best day of his life, right? Yeah.
Tell me more.
It sounded like he was pretty, his adrenaline was going, obviously. But no, he was very happy.
Yeah. What was it like?
He was thankful that I called, just to see how he was doing too. So,
what was it like for you, from one dad to another, to have that conversation?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's no words can express it.
Yeah. And have you talked to his mom? I can't remember if you said you talked to his mom or not.
Yeah,
Sandra, yeah.
I said that Joe and Sandra called because they didn't know I knew, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
Here at Buffalo Inn, we treat all of our clients with utmost respect and just loving everybody that that comes in this place.
Yeah.
So, they really appreciated us. So Joe called and he says, Mike, it's Joe. I said, I already know. Just keep driving. If you want to stop, there's a room for you guys.
That is Mike Reed, the manager of the Buffalo Inn in Pink Mountain, BC. Now, Sarah Penton of Radio West also spoke with Sam Banastik's uncle, Al Banastik, about hearing the news and how not only the family was searching for him, but the entire community.
We got the phone call yesterday that they found him, and kind of unbelievable after all this time, but we'll definitely take that. That's a win. Imagine being out there, being that cold for that long. It was cold when we were up there searching for him, and that's even another few weeks now.
Yeah.
Yes, us and some family and a lot of friends. I think I better say a big thank you to West Fraser Sawmills for the equipment, the employees they let go to search, the side-by-sides and machines and helicopter time is very expensive.
Al, how did Sandra?
Unfortunately,
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. How did Sandra? How did she get the call? How did she get the information?
Well, I'm not sure. I think the RCMP, once they had contact from the gas workers and the Great Urban, they went there, I believe, from Fort St. John and sent an ambulance, Fort Nelson, and that's where he's at. And then, of course, the phone calls kind of blew up and just shock and unbelievable.
Yeah. Now you know Sam as being someone who is very he's an outdoor enthusiast and then some. How do you think he survived
not
this?
Anymore.
You hope not anymore.
Yeah, but you can't stop kids. They're going to do whatever they want. I know what I did when I was a kid. So, just, I don't know. I think there's a lot of luck. Perseverance, I guess.
I remember talking to his mom, and she told me that all he had with him was a tarp. He hadn't brought a tent, and he only had.
I think he had more than that, but yeah, because he wasn't there when it was real cold, and I guess maybe that just shows plan for the worst, because you never know what can happen.
That was Shelley Joyce, host of Daybreak Kamloops on CBC, speaking with Sam Banastik's uncle, Al. And you'll get much more on this story throughout the day here on CBC. Again, a hiker who had been reported missing in mid-October. He was supposed to go on a 10-day camping trip. After 50 days, he was found by two men headed to the Redfern Lake Trail for work. And he apparently had built a camp and shelter in dried-out creek bed before making his way to where he was able to flag down two men. And family members say that Sam Banastik is recovering in hospital. All the best to him and his family as well. It's 12:14 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Well, this afternoon, Premier David Eby will meet virtually with other premiers and the Prime Minister as well to discuss U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on Canadian goods. We talked about this yesterday on the program, and here are your emails. Morgan writes, it's absurd that the U.S. has declared a war on drugs and is threatening Canada to coerce it into participating by increasing border security. That's the American approach to the problem, and it isn't working. Canada should instead help by doing what Canada does best, taking care of citizens. Canada should respond to Trump's threat of tariffs by improving trade relations with Mexico, thereby becoming less dependent on U.S. trade. Jessica writes, we need to remember that Trump is a deeply racist bully who's promising mass deportation. His statements on migrants and people of color are outrageously and deeply offensive. So yes, we need to worry about our borders and have a humanitarian plan in place to support all the innocent people he plans to attack. We need to keep racist values out too. My concern is if we say how high when Trump says jump, what comes next? There will be a next unreasonable demand. You can count on it. In 4 years' time, when he's no longer in office, we need to be sure we have not backed ourselves into a corner with agreements that do not align with Canadian values and interests. Canada must stand by our ethics and not target people in crisis, immigrants and refugees on Trump's nasty directive. We need to connect with American businesses that value our trade relationship and let them push back on Trump, and we need to explore other markets and manufacture more goods in Canada with our own resources. Canadian jobs. Thank you both for your emails. You can always send us your thoughts. bctoday@cbc.ca is our address. .12:16 now here on BC Today. And to the strike at Canada Post. It's entering week 2. And today, mediated negotiations have broken down between Canada Post and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Labour Minister Steve McKinnon said an appointed special mediator decided to temporarily suspend talks between the two sides as the parties remain too far apart on critical issues. He's called the two sides to a meeting today. McKinnon spoke this morning to reporters in Ottawa, and he said he was extremely frustrated.
We're obviously in the Christmas season. Obviously, there are small businesses and others who are being affected by this labor conflict. I am not happy about that situation. But these parties, these parties bear. I'll let the parties explain their positions, and they can do that for themselves. What I will say is that these negotiations have not budged. In over 8 days under a special mediator.
Are you going to send them to binding arbitration?
That is not in the cards.
The Canada Post workers have been off the job since November 15th. And so we're asking you, how has the strike affected you? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email us at bctoday@cbc.ca. And as we are entering the busy holiday season, we're also entering a busy fundraising season as well. Nicole Mucci is a spokesperson with Union Gospel Mission in Vancouver. Hi, Nicole. Good afternoon.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I am well. How much does the Union Gospel Mission rely on Canada Post?
Pretty significantly. We really do, like many nonprofits in Canada, rely on traditional mail for a significant portion of our fundraising. And this time of year, in fact, is usually one of our busiest and most important fundraising times of year. Around 50%, 50 to 60% of our entire fundraising revenue tends to come between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
And so what happened in light of the strike then?
You know, we actually are feeling really, really grateful currently for the continuous support of our donor base and for the ways that they have worked diligently to try to adapt and use new technology. We've seen consistent and out of character increase in our online donation portals day over day for the last couple of weeks, which is really incredible. But we also kind of realize that one of the things UGM has been working hard to do over the last year is really try to adapt to new technology and find new ways to connect with our supporters, including doing direct text messaging, straight to voicemail outreach, and a lot of in-person continuous conversation and meetings with people.
And that's been the struggle for Canada Post, hasn't it? Is people adapting to new ways of communicating, and that's the dilemma in front of them now in terms of how they go forward. For you, Union Gospel Mission, can you remind us, what happens to those funds that you are able to raise?
Right. So we are 90% donor funded, and we have got 10 different locations in the Lower Mainland. We provide shelter to men and women every single night. We have about 700 meals a day that we provide for those who are struggling, perhaps with poverty, homelessness, or addiction. We have recovery services as well for those who are trying to journey out of addiction. We have family programming. We have transitional housing. And so we are diligently trying to show up in each community that we're in the way that the community needs.
And So have you come up with alternative plans now in terms of seeking other ways of connecting with your donors, or were these always in place before?
Well, one of the things that we are so grateful for is as an organization that has been in British Columbia for over 80 years, we do have some donors who have just faithfully given to us for a very long time. And we've had some new ones joining us every single year, and they've really given to us through many different ups and downs. There have been previous postal strikes, there have been major worldwide events like COVID-19, and their support has remained throughout all of these different bumps in the road. And the care that the broader community has for those we serve is just so clear. And so we're really grateful for them. And what we're trying to do is just make sure we're calling a little bit extra, trying to find ways to meet with them in person. We have, some of our fundraising team is out delivering poinsettias and just having opportunities to meet face to face with some of our donors.
Hmm. What are you hearing from other nonprofits, Nicole?
I think that there are a lot of different ways that nonprofits are trying to address this current scenario that we're in, because it's not just UGM that is impacted by the strike in terms of this being such a broad fundraising season. And so we know that there are a lot of other organizations that are trying to get really creative in how they connect with their donor bases. And so one of the things that we really want to encourage listeners to remember is that it is wonderful to connect with the charity of your choice. Maybe give a call to their front desk, or if you have previous mail that has a phone number on it, you can call them and ask them how you can continue to support while the postal strike still happens.
Nicole Mucci is my guest, a spokesperson for Union Gospel Mission, one of the nonprofits that rely on Canada Post during this time of year for their fundraising. If you work with a nonprofit, I'd love to hear from you, or if you're affected in any other way by the ongoing Canada Post strike. No end in sight right now because the two sides have apparently been too far apart and so far apart on critical issues that a special mediator that had been appointed by the federal government has stepped away and temporarily suspended those talks. And so this morning, that was announced by Labor Minister Steve McKinnon. He's saying he's called for both parties to come to the table with him, to come to a meeting with him, and looking for a negotiated settlement. He was also asked about the possibility of binding arbitration, and he said that is not in the cards right now. We're asking you, how are you affected by the Canada Post strike? Postal workers went on strike November 15th. Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690. And when it comes to impact as well, earlier this week, Service Canada said it had been holding off on mailing about 85,000 passports due to the strike. So if you're waiting for a passport, that's going to be delayed as well. Jim is calling us from Burns Lake. Hi, Jim.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks so much for calling. How are you impacted by the strike?
Well, being as a senior, we're limited to how much of an increase we get on our checks every year, which only amounts to about 20 cups of coffee. Now, these people are just on their greeting. They push the price of everything up. And our pension checks aren't going up. The mail service, when I can remember years ago, it was only like 10 cents per letter. Now it's way over $1.
So it's the cost of things.
Yes. What they're doing is pushing their wages up. Well, seniors are going further behind.
And so you're talking about what it would mean for someone like yourself should wages be increased as a result of any kind of negotiated agreement. Jim, have you been affected by the stall at all in mail or parcel delivery?
I have one or two checks, including one's a government, in the mail someplace.
Someplace, okay. And some federal benefit checks are being mailed out and continuing to do so, but some provincial checks and other benefits as well.
They can put it in the mail, but it don't get to our box.
You're still
There's
waiting.
nobody's delivering.
Oh, okay. And I'm sure that being in Burns Lake, there must be, I would imagine, a more significant impact on you.
It does.
Yeah. Well, Jim, it's good to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Brent is calling us now from Beasley. Hi there, Brent.
Hey, how you doing?
I am fine. What's the impact on you?
Really, nothing. I'm just all my creditors that send me bills in the mail are just going to have to wait until the mail starts
Okay.
up, and then I'll deal with it. But I'm very, very. I was in the public service for over 40 years, and I think we went on. The union decided we should go on strike twice, and the nature of my job allowed me to be way in the middle of nowhere. The strike was happening, so I avoided it. But my concern here is the union has decided to play hardball, and so everybody's out on strike. So people are finding other ways of dealing with stuff they would normally deal through the mail. And when the strike is over, there's a really good chance that they're not going to go back. They're going to continue on and not use the postal service anymore. So I really do think the strikers in the union are basically shooting themselves in the foot. They can go back to work. The union and the government or postal service can figure out a contract, and life goes on. Their paychecks still come in, so I don't get it. I really don't.
No. Okay. Well, interesting point there that you make. And that's something that we heard from our guests as well, Brent, that, Union Gospel Mission, they have been looking for those alternatives. And so as people adapt, as, perhaps even more so than they have been, what impact is that going to have in terms of demand for Canada Post services and Canada Post?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Brent, good to hear from you as you wait for those those bills, I guess.
Alrighty.
You take care. As Brent in Beasley. And Canada Post reported a $315 million loss before tax in its third quarter this year. Let's take another call now. Put out the numbers again. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Dana in Terrace. Hi. A lot of more northern callers today. Hi, Dana.
Hey, how's it going?
I am fine. How are you affected?
Well, I have relatives and family in the farther north, I guess you could call it, up, in the Norman Wells area, NWT. And in those areas, you cannot send parcels or whatever, or mail in general. Like some people here still have the advantage of using other options, I guess, like a courier, like a curator or somebody.
Right.
And you can't do that up there.
No.
So they are completely cut off up in the north from a lot of stuff. And another thing, I guess, the thing that irks me the most is the fact that Canada Post is a failing corporation, losing billions upon billions every year. And we have these people, going on strike as if they're like some greedy corporation. Here they are, they're just trying to stay alive, and this is happening. So I don't have much sympathy for them, to be honest. So, just wanted to put that out there.
And Dana, let me just go back to your family in the Northwest Territories. Do you tend to send them, packages for the holidays or things like that?
Yeah, that's another thing too. Like, even if the strike was over in a week or two, I think there's going to be a large glut of mail, I guess, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I got a feeling it's going to affect things for quite a while, especially when it comes to the north, because things don't always go as planned up there, right?
Yeah.
It's a different ball of wax.
Different ball of wax, to be sure. Dana, really good to hear from you in Terrace. Thank you.
Okay, you have a good day.
You too. And yes, Canada Post has said that once the strike is over, they're still expecting a backlog, and so delays due to that. It is just about 12:30 now, and we're going to continue to take your calls on this, asking you what impact is the Canada Post strike or the strike at Canada Post having on you. I'd like to hear from you, and I'll be joined again by Nicole Mucci from Union Gospel Mission. And later on in the next half hour, we're going to hear about something that's going on at Vancouver City Council today. And this is a debate over whether to reverse a ban on natural gas for heating and water in new builds. And so that discussion going on today, they have about 130 or so speakers lined up. So it's going to take a while. We're going to hear from one of those speakers in the next half hour. Right now, it's time for a CBC News update, and here's Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. Northern Rockies RCMP are thanking search crews, volunteers, and the Canadian Rangers after a hiker who was reported missing for 5 weeks was found alive. Mounties say 2 men who were heading to work on the Redfern Lake Trail yesterday saw Sam Benestick. Benestick told police he stayed in his car for a couple of days, then camped in the wilderness and made a shelter in a dried-out creek bed. One person is dead after they were struck by a vehicle while sitting up against a wall in the parking lot of a Kamloops gas station. Emergency crews were called to the Canco station shortly before 5 this morning. The driver remained on scene and is cooperating. And as we've been hearing on the show, almost 2 weeks into the postal strike, and the special federal mediator has temporarily suspended contract talks between Canada Post and the union. The mediator says the parties are still too far apart on the critical issues, and the pause will give them time to reassess their positions. And now the forecast. Snowfall warnings are in place for much of the central interior, including Prince George, the Caribou, and Bulkley Valley. Heavy snow is also expected along the Yellowstone Highway and the Pine Pass on Highway 97. On the north coast, periods of rain this afternoon with strong winds and a high of 4. Highs to minus 16 with a chance of flurries in the Peace. Highs from minus 4 to plus 1 and mainly cloudy in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, mainly cloudy with a high of 0. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, cloudy this afternoon with highs around 6 degrees. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
What an incredible story about that hiker.
It sure is. Amazing.
5 weeks.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of knowledge about backcountry survival. Not enough, certainly.
Yeah, that's impressive, right? I mean, amazing.
Yeah, really amazing. And so I don't know, it makes me feel like I want to sign up. I should sign up for one of those courses. I know the Avalanche Canada and outdoors groups often have those courses. I should maybe sign up. It's on my list.
Good plan, Michelle. Yeah. Let's touch base in a year, see if you've done that.
I'll let you know.
Okay,
I had trouble with the grouse grind, Rob. So,
sure, yeah.
So,
Might not be a great idea.
That might not be on my itinerary.
Well, let's see. Let's check back.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've learned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And yeah, that does make you think about, what you know about having to survive if you're out in the wild, in the outdoors in BC. A lot of people, of course, like to enjoy their hikes. I'm part of a hikers group on Facebook, and I do see all the adventures that people go on, and I just think, someday I'll do that once I have the know-how. If you have any tips for me, you can email me, bctoday@cbc.ca. .34 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for being with us. Nice to be with you. Well, Canada Post workers have been off the job since November 15th. And now a special mediator that had been appointed has suspended talks temporarily, saying the two sides are too far apart on critical issues. Labour Minister Steve McKinnon has called the union and the Crown Corporation to a meeting today. And we are asking you, how is the strike at Canada Post affecting you? Our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. As you may have seen on CBC News, one family in Quebec has been affected as they grieve their late father. Emily Wallstrom's father, Dennis Wallstrom, died suddenly on October 23rd in Surrey from complications from a lung disease. He had just turned 65. Emily Wallstrom was expecting to lay her father to rest this month, but instead, she says his cremated remains are stuck in a Canada Post facility here in BC. And Wallstrom says Canada Post is the only courier service that ships cremated remains. She spoke with CBC about her story.
You know, there's a certain responsibility that is put upon Canada Post by them accepting human remains, to then expect families to, especially in their time of grieving, to throw this on top of it. It's hard. It's hard to grieve, not knowing and not having all the answers as to where he is and when will he arrive.
Now, both Canada Post and the union have expressed sympathy for those affected by the strike. And Canada Post says all items in its network are secured and will be delivered on a first-in, first-out basis once the strike ends. However, it has warned of significant delays once the strike does come to an end. And the union, Canadian Postal Workers Union, said in a statement they are working very hard to resolve the conflict. As of today, those talks are temporarily suspended. We're asking you, what impact is that strike having on you? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. We're also taking your emails, and Josh wrote us from Nanaimo. In this postal strike and in all other labor actions, the public needs to remember that these services don't exist without the workers. I hear callers complaining about the strike and talking about how much they rely on the services, but giving the workers no credit or recognition for being the ones who make the services possible. Please keep them in mind. Josh, thank you very much. That's BC Today at cbc.ca. And again, you can call us and let us know what effect it's having on you. I'm joined by Nicole Mucci, spokesperson for Union Gospel Mission. And Nicole, you've been sharing the impact that this strike is having on nonprofits and charities that rely on this season to fundraise. When you hear about that it's it's about the workers who provide the service, from their perspective, they're saying inflation has really increased the cost of living for them. What do you see from your perspective at Union Gospel Mission in terms of the impact of inflation on workers?
Yeah, certainly. Really, we're seeing people starting to struggle with being able to survive really between paychecks kind of across the board. And so we absolutely support a fair resolution between Canada Post and between the union with the postal workers. We know that there are a lot of folks who work full time and who actually end up losing their housing because they're struggling with the many different costs of living and the associated barriers and struggles that can come from just struggling to stay on top of your bill payments. We have guys who stay in our shelter consistently that work 9 to 5 in all sorts of trades and different workplaces. And so we know that many people are struggling right now with the cost of living.
We have a postal worker on the line right now, in fact, and Tammy is calling us from Prince George. Hi, Tammy.
Hi there.
Hi, thanks so much for calling in. And what's been the impact on you?
Oh, well, I've been on a picket line from 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. every day. We're not picketing weekends here in Prince George, but it's been a little chilly on the picket line and pretty dark early in the morning. I'm interested in your guest today from the Union Gospel Mission talking about the effect on them, because we've been made aware through this strike that there are postal workers working full-time who have been having to access food banks in order to provide for themselves and their families, and that's before the strike. So we have postal workers that have been two-tiered several years ago through a collective agreement where we were forced into a two-tier system. And
what does that mean for you? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It means that there are people side by side doing the same work, and some of them are making significantly less wages. And that was part of a force back to work by the Harper government back in, I believe it was 2011. You might not want to quote me on that date. But there are people making a low enough wage working full-time for Canada Post that they are also needing to access food banks while working full-time for a Crown corporation because they cannot make it between paychecks. So that's one of the reasons postal workers are on strike, is because we also are feeling the effects, and particularly the people on the lower tier.
And so I'm wondering how anxious you're feeling right now when you hear people are finding alternatives away from Canada Post.
For their delivery?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue. I don't feel terribly anxious about that because we know that we are probably the best, most reasonably priced options for a lot of people across Canada. And small businesses in particular, we do a lot of deliveries for. And having said that, the amount of support we're getting this strike, at least in Prince George, from small businesses and large, is incredible. It's more support than I've ever seen, and I've been around for a lot of years.
What are they telling you?
This is my last strike with Canada Post, guaranteed.
Okay. What are you hearing from people?
We're having businesses in town come out to the picket lines and offer support. They're bringing food, they're bringing coffee, they're bringing hand warmers. We've got a small business here in town that's supported our fire pit out in the BCR industrial site here. We've got a fire pit to keep ourselves warm during the day, and we've got a gentleman here that has been delivering wood to us on a regular basis. He will not take payment. We're getting a huge amount of support here, and it's surprising and delighting me, honestly.
For those cold, dark mornings. And so, yep. Tammy, as we've been reporting, those talks are off right now. What do you hope comes of this meeting with the Labour Minister? What is your hope? What do you hope comes out of this job action?
I hope to get back to work, and I don't know any postal worker out there across the country that would not rather be at work right now. We are... this is, some of us, this is our favorite time of the year. We understand how important we are at Christmas, and there's not one of us, I don't think, that wouldn't rather be at work. But we have an employer that for a year, this contract has been in negotiations for a year, and they have not moved one iota. And the union isn't really moving either, but what we're trying to prevent is a third tier, which is what Canada Post is trying to do, is introduce yet another lower level of employment for people working for this corporation. And we want to deliver on weekends. I'm hearing, they just don't want to deliver on. We have a mechanism in our current collective agreement that would allow them to do weekend deliveries, but it would be full-time work, and Canada Post is pushing hard to make that basically gig work. 8 hours a week is what they would guarantee people. That's not enough for people to live.
Tammy, thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate hearing from you.
Thank you so much.
That's Tammy in Prince George, a postal worker who is picketing in Prince George. Marilyn is calling now from Victoria as we ask you, what is the impact of the Canada Post strike? Hi, Marilyn.
Hello.
Hi, tell us your story.
Well, I'm involved with a nonprofit charitable group called Toques for Kids, and we make toques for children and mail them all over northern BC, Nunavut, Northwest Territories, everywhere. And of course, the strike has stopped us from doing that, and we've got orders already for 2,000 toques that the kids are waiting for.
Where are they now then, those toques?
They're in my house.
They're in your house?
I'm the main distributor. There are other distributors, but I'm the primary distributor. I'm a volunteer.
Wow.
We're all volunteers.
That's a packed living room.
I have a room, separate room, and then I've already mailed off close to 2,000 since the beginning of October, and to Nunavut and northern BC. It's just means that they aren't getting through to these kids that
that need them.
They really need them. It's minus 35, and a lot of these children do not have hats. Hard to believe, but it's true. And all the hats are knit by volunteers, and we get them out as fast as we can get them in. And
what are you hearing from families who are waiting for these toques?
Well, we send them to schools, and so they're just very thankful to get them. They understand there's a strike, so they know they're not going to get them. But even getting them to Nunavut is a challenge because they go in by plane. And so, it's basically they're happy to get what they can get when they get it. But we'd like to get it to them as soon as possible because it's getting cold.
Absolutely. And so right now, I guess they're sitting and waiting and
Yep, I've got them boxed and ready.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Every time I get a request, I do up the boxes and get them ready. We also send socks and mitts when we have requests and when we have them. And, this was started by a single woman who just felt there was a need. And every year it's going up and up and up. And it's wonderful. We get pictures of the kids sometimes. And if these are people who really want to help these children.
Are you able to look for an alternative at all, or is that not a possibility?
Well, it is expensive to mail. We do use the prepaid boxes because they are a bit cheaper. And I haven't gone to check for alternatives yet. Depending on whether or not the strike goes on, I will try. But we don't have a lot of money. We sell cookies. We do all sorts of things just trying to get money to mail these things to the children. And, it might be something. I do support the postal workers. I understand what they're going through. And, we just hope eventually it'll get sorted for everybody.
Marilyn, I'm so glad to hear from you. Thank you very much for calling in.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Take care. That's Marilyn calling us from Victoria. She's the chief shipper for Toques for Kids. Nicole Mucci, thank you very much for your time as well. Good to hear from another nonprofit.
Thank you so much.
That's Nicole Mucci, spokesperson for Union Gospel Mission, or UGM. It's 12:47 now. You're with BC Today. Well, Make the Season Kind is a new name for our annual CBC British Columbia fundraiser in support of 108 food banks in this province. And the event is in support of people like this.
My name is Edie, and I am here because when your husband passes away, you lose most of your income. And, I'm just reestablishing, and this is helping. Humbling. It was, you never expect that to happen to you. I guess you take things for granted, and then life gives you reality. You get produce, fruit, canned goods, meat. A lot depends on what they have. Milk, sometimes eggs. Basically everything you need, but maybe not exactly what you want. But it feeds you, so that's the main thing. I had to sell and move and just start all over. Just to go from a home to an apartment, which is okay. I thought, it's really, really small, but it's big enough, and I have everything I need. So it is really true. You don't need a bunch of stuff. And moving, I find that it's hard to meet new people because you don't have your children going to school, or you just don't have the social interaction that you do when you have kids to help you, or if you're working. So it gets lonely. And that's different also. So appreciate what you have. You have to share, even if you don't have anything, you always have something to give, even if it's just a hug or kind words. Just, I don't know, I've always lived by be nice. It works. Like, it's better than not being nice.
Thank you, Edie. Well, Make the Season Kind is the new name for our annual campaign in support of food banks in BC. Friday, December the 6th, we will have a day full of special programming, all to inspire you to be kind to those in need. I'll be co-hosting a special 3-hour edition of BC Today with Margaret Gallagher, host of North by Northwest. We'll be right outside the CBC building here in downtown Vancouver, so come on down and say hi. We want to try and capture all the energy that's out there in the streets that happens to be the first day of the Taylor Swift concert series. The Eras Tour arriving as well. So it's going to be busy. And you want to come down and say hello and watch our program. And you can also make a donation. You don't have to wait until then. Just go to cbc.ca/kindbc. Click on the Donate Now button, and you will get a tax receipt as well. 12:51 now, and right now, Vancouver City Council is continuing its debate on bylaw changes that would allow for the use of natural gas for space and water heating in new homes. Now, this comes after years of gradually phasing out natural gas. City Council is split on the issue. Those in favor say natural gas will increase affordability, and while those against it say it would increase carbon emissions. More than 130 speakers scheduled today. We're joined by one of them. Roberto Pecora is Director of Building Decarbonization at the Zero Emissions Innovation Center. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. I understand you're on a tight timeline. Are you about to speak?
I am.
You are. Okay.
Shortly.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Well, tell me why you wanted to be in line to speak on this issue.
Well, I think there's a number of things that the City Council needs to hear from our point of view. So at the Zero Emissions Innovation Center, we have 5 building decarbonization programs, and 3 of which are capacity building. We're trying to grow building industry capacity to reach the top levels of the Zero Carbon Step Code and Energy Step Code, as well as the City of Vancouver's energy and emissions requirements that are currently in place right now. And there's some really interesting results coming from those that are able to achieve it. And I think ultimately we wanted to convey those really interesting findings to City Council, things like the affordability with which you can build some of these high performance buildings. That's one, and the speed at which you can build them as well.
So you're basically saying you can build new homes without natural gas and still make it affordable?
Absolutely. There's ways to do it that are not necessarily all that well known or widespread among industry. So we're one of many actors in the industry that are trying to spread the news and get the capacity built up in the various different segments of the building sector. But what we know to be true is that, yes, you could build them for more, these high performance all electric homes, but yes, you can also build them for less. And there's certain ways to do that. And it's something that we need to tell all of the building industry and people listening to this right now.
What do you expect will be the reaction when you send that message?
Well, it's hard to read. I'll be calling in, so I'm not sure what the reaction is going to be. There's going to be, like you said, there's a number of speakers, 142, I think, or 145 speakers, so quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a number of opinions on either side of the table. I imagine that a number of those opinions come from builders that have never built to a high performance standard, have tried once and maybe not have succeeded. We're trying to, I guess, shed light on what the future holds for those that keep on trying. And that's an important message, because if there is really no light at the end of the tunnel, then yes, it's going to be challenging for a very long time. But we're trying to tell everybody that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not that long of a tunnel, frankly. You can get to this amazing result pretty quickly.
I have about 30 seconds left with you, Roberto. Why should people care about this beyond Vancouver? What's the bigger issue here?
Leadership. I think it comes down to leadership. The City of Vancouver has always been a leader for green buildings, and a lot of municipalities across the entire province look to Vancouver for leadership. Now, Vancouver is no longer the lead city. There's other cities like Victoria and Nelson and Saanich and many other cities right now that are doing incredible work adopting the higher steps of the Zero Carbon Step Code, or they've adopted higher steps of the Energy Step Code right now. But I think leadership it nurtures innovation in industry. It gives society, essentially British Columbians, better homes. And that's something that really is an important consideration when you're looking at the Energy and Zero Carbon Step Code. You get a better home. And I think this is something that all British Columbians want.
As you say, more than 140 speakers. You are one of them and about to go on your call at Vancouver City Council. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you.
Roberto Pecora is Director of Building Decarbonization at the Zero Emissions Innovation Center. And again, those speakers lined up right now at Vancouver City Council, remotely for some of them as well. And on this issue of walking back a ban on natural gas for water and space heating in new builds in Vancouver. So that is a story we're closely watching. We'll see what opinions are coming from those more than 140 speakers and what comes of the vote at City Council as well. We'll watch that closely for you here on CBC. Right now, we have a lot of emails on the Canada Post strike. We've been asking you what the impact has been on you. Rich writes, I'd like to echo one of the caller sentiments. Not much sympathy for the people striking. Being workers for the company, obviously they know the position that the finances are in. Times are tough, and with this time of year, with Christmas coming, there are added pressures on finances. I personally have had to cancel my credit card due to fraud, in which I needed to put a security deposit on a trailer I needed to rent to move a vehicle. I find it kind of funny that any kind of strike where the economy is severely impacted and the finances of all these huge corporations are affected, the government steps in really quick. This would probably be saving them money, so why bother ending the strike? And again, just to note, in this case, the federal government or the federal labor minister has said that intervening for binding to order binding arbitration is not being considered right now. Jay writes, I talked to a few picketing postal workers this morning. I told them I supported their quest for a fair collective agreement. I asked them if all managers received their bonuses last year. They told me management did receive their bonuses despite the losses that management claims Canada Post is making. Thank you very much for your emails. bctoday@cbc.ca is where you can reach us. Let us know what your thoughts are on the Canada Post strike and anything else you hear on the program. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us on the show. Tomorrow, we're going to talk holiday ornaments. What is the most meaningful ornament in your household? Love to hear from you.